Welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce, episode 56. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
I'm the boyfriend.
And welcome back for another wonderful week of divorce.
So 56 wonderful weeks of divorce.
Yeah, minus a couple. It's been a year.
Yeah, it's been over a year. But so were there wonderful weeks of divorce before?
No, there were not. Not until us, boyfriend. Now all weeks are wonderful weeks of divorce.
All right. Just getting that out there.
Fair enough. And if you agree, please go out there and rate, review, and subscribe, but not if you are driving, because that's dangerous. I know the boyfriend hates that.
He rolls his eyes, ladies and gentlemen, every time she says it. I don't want people to text and drive. That's dumb.
Right.
But to say it every week, I hope people learn.
They know. It's just the thing.
All right.
And also to annoy you. Okay.
Thanks.
So, you're welcome. Hey, this week we want to talk about dating.
Yeah?
Yeah, why not, right? And, we're gearing up for an episode here where we're going to set somebody up on a blind date.
Working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it, you guys. If you're interested, we are now screening applicants for a blind date on Life, Lafter Divorce Podcast.
I had a phone call tonight, screened applicants.
Yes.
We'll see what happens.
You're starting. There's a little recruiting going on. So soon, we don't have a date set for which episode this will be, but it'll be soon. And because we're talking about dating, new year brings new things. And a lot of times people get into new relationships. And, we've talked about dating before. We've talked about matchmaking and different things like that. But, I think it's important to talk about safety. And by safety, I do not mean just like safe sex or condoms.
Bring your condom. No, not that.
Yes, that. But that's not what this particular episode is about. We are actually talking about safety and about being able to safely set boundaries, or think about being aware, not paranoid, but aware of your surroundings and, going out on dates with people you don't know, because so many things are now online, where we find people online. And so knowing somebody online is much different than meeting them in person. You don't get the whole creep value in, right?
Oh, I'm sure there's creep value from
creep factoring. Yes, online, but some people are really good at it. So you got to know what to do and how to handle yourself. So
there are some great creeps out there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, great creep stories, but we don't want you to experience a creepy instance or experience. So we have a very special guest on this week who is all about self-defense, right?
Yeah, protect yourself.
Protect yourself in so many ways. I mean, first of all, don't even get yourself into that situation. And we talk about that. We have a lot of interesting conversations with our guest today. So you know what? I'm not going to recap the whole thing for you before you listen to it. Instead, let's just introduce her. This week's guest is Stun Gun Jen. Yes.
Really?
Stun Gun Jen. It's her weapon of choice. Not deadly, hopefully. And mind you, just the disclaimer in this, this is not an episode about deadly weapons or anything like this, but it's about awareness. Well, we'll let her tell it. Stun Gun Jen. She's an independent crystal director with Damsel in Defense and a dating expert. She's found her second husband and amazing husband online, but boy, did she kiss a lot of frogs in her time. So without further ado, Ms. Jennifer Lester. Jen, welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce Podcast. We are so happy to have you here. And so we've been sitting around, listeners, for a little bit, getting to know Jen while we were setting up.
And we can't stop laughing. I'm sorry.
I know, we can't. We're going off on all sorts of tangents here. And the boyfriend just asked, wait a minute, how again did you guys meet?
Because the boyfriend is here for this interview also.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Thank God, or we'll never get to our point.
He's going to keep us on track today. And so, Jen, we met at a networking group, 3 years ago?
Gosh, was it that long? Yeah, I think it was. Because it was before the boyfriend.
It was before the boyfriend. Whoa. Before the boyfriend. BTB.
Sure.
Hashtag.
Yeah. And I remember I wanted to come because you were doing a Life, Lafter Divorce workshop.
Yes.
And even though I'm very happily married now, but have been there.
Yeah.
And I
You were
thought,
like,
oh my
I
God,
wanna
that
do
sounds like so much fun. And then, of course, when I told my husband, he's like, what? I'm like, don't worry, it's not in the cards. I'm not looking at it now.
He's like, what do they teach you in this workshop? Where's the homework?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Are you still running those?
I am. And now I have them so that I can do them on webinars so that no matter where you are in the world, you can join in.
Oh, that's way cool.
Yeah.
I still want to do one. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Well, I will let you know when the next one is and we'll get you on there.
I think anytime you can inject comedy in life, it's fabulous.
You know, anytime you have marriage, there's going to be some sort of comedy eventually. Tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's been a while and you've been super busy because I follow you on social media and I know you're always doing awesome, fun things with your business. And that's actually when we met. When Jen and I met, we were at a business networking group up in Huntington Beach. And you had been doing your business for a little while, hadn't you?
By then, if we met 3 years ago, it'd been about 18 months. Yeah, because it's been 4.5 years now.
Yeah. And you have been off and running ever since.
Oh, yeah.
With Damsel in Distress.
Damsel in defense, girl.
Oh, my God.
With us, you're never in distress again. Come on.
Okay, edit that, boyfriend. Damsel in
Leave
defense.
it. Because I tell you this, that is something that people use all the time.
Yeah.
And you just don't have to be a damsel in distress anymore. There's so many options for you. So we're Damsel in Defense, and we equip, empower, and educate women and nice men, boyfriend, to keep themselves protected. Because in this day and age, we have to be proactive about our personal safety.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. And it's funny because I say that and I always cringe every time I say something like that. But even with life after divorce, people always say, oh, life after divorce. I'm like, no, it's laughter. Like, what part don't you? But your mind automatically goes to what we're used to saying.
Yeah, but with yours, I've never gotten it wrong because it stuck with me because I thought, there is a lot of life and a lot of laughter after divorce, but freshly divorced people don't see that.
No, they don't.
So I loved the title of what you're doing.
So what specific avenues are you trying to empower people to have defense in their life? Is it with training? Is it with how?
All of the above.
All of it.
Okay, so the way our business is structured is we actually do home empower hours. These are the good old-fashioned Tupperware parties, but we're not doing Tupperware. Ours are kick-ass parties, okay? So it's a whole different avenue. And the products that we offer are non-lethal, mostly, forms of self-defense.
Okay.
So for the woman who can't or is not comfortable carrying a gun, we have options for her. For people who do carry guns, we have options for them too, because we carry concealed carry purses. Just in California, good luck. But we also do it. We teach different behaviors. We teach, to be situationally aware. That's one thing in society we've stopped doing. Our faces are constantly in our cell phones, and we're not paying attention to what's going on around us, which is a huge risk factor for us. But the whole reason I wanted to come and talk to you guys is because I've been there after divorce and diving back into the single world, which, mind you, when I did, social media still didn't really exist. Because it's been 15 years. God, when did MySpace come in? About close to that, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it came up.
Well, MySpace was in a little before that. Because
I wasn't on it then.
2004, 5, 6?
3, 4, because I know bands were using MySpace. MySpace came before Facebook. And
but I met my husband in 2001.
Oh, okay.
Well, on the phone.
And it wasn't then. I think.
No.
Yeah, it was just.
And even texting back then, if I'm thinking correctly, was a pain in the ass because you had to hit the number buttons multiple times to get to each letter.
Get the letter.
Yeah.
So even texting wasn't the same it is now. So it's our technology has definitely changed. But for a while, I actually ran a website about online dating and published a bunch of articles on doing it safely. So when we were talking the other day about something totally off topic, all I could think is, oh my God, what about these women and they're getting back on the saddle, so to speak? And how are they doing it in a safe fashion? Because trauma is going to keep you from ever getting out there, which sucks.
But back to your original statement of situational awareness, that's, no one thinks about where they're at. But if you take a little bit of time to be aware of where you're at and how and what you're doing and what kind of situation you're putting yourself into, you can reduce the chance of a lot of these things occurring.
Very
so you
much.
may not even have to have certain protection mechanisms. If you just know where you're at and know where to be and where not to be at certain times of the day, you can be much more safer in your own life.
For sure. Knowing your exits is a big deal.
Yeah.
But even knowing where you're at isn't necessarily going to completely keep you covered. Like most women don't know, the number one place women are attacked is a grocery store parking lot. And so it doesn't matter what time of day. It happens day and night. And who doesn't go to the grocery store?
But you watch who's around you.
You watch who's around you. You keep your eyes out of your dang phone.
Yeah.
You walk with confidence. Something we love to teach women is to be a cactus. Be something nobody wants to grab in the first place. And I don't mean by looking scummy or anything like that. I mean, I'm talking your body confidence, the way you carry yourself. Look like I'm not going to be easy to fight with, right? And look like you're going to see them. You're going to have that witness eye to eye. But also, if they grab you, you need to know how to hurt them. Yeah. Pure and simple. Because most of these attackers that ever choose to hurt somebody are picking somebody that they think is weak in the first place. They're picking somebody that they don't think is going to fight back. They like the easy target. If we can stop being the easy target, then there's lesser of a chance we're going to be chosen. However, that being said, that's talking about kind of the masked man myth. That's talking about the stranger attack. The percentage of people who are sexually assaulted by people they know is 82%. Like that's a whole different ball game. And that's why if you're local to the Long Beach area, we actually host a free women's self-defense class. It's all about hand-to-hand. We do cover our tools, but the focus is what you're born with. Because in those cases, for example, I'm the mother of a 2-time sexual assault survivor. Both people were people she knew. Had she even had our tools, they wouldn't have been in her hand at the moment. So what do you do then? And so we want people to know and have that full education of ways that they can keep themselves safe. I've seen too many survivors and victims. I call them different things because they approach it all differently. Just like there's survivors of divorce and then there's victims of divorce that stay in that dark place the rest of their life. And I can see a huge difference in the trajectory of their whole life. So if we can avoid the trauma in the first place in some way, shape, or form, even though even getting into a fight can be traumatic, but losing the fight's more traumatic, right? Yeah. So if we can keep them from that in the first place, then they're going to be able to live their best life. And that's what we want people to be able to do.
Mm-hmm. You know, and going back to your point about 2 things came to mind as you're talking is, one of them is become that person that people don't see as a target. You know, how you hold yourself, how you walk with yourself. On our last episode, 55, I spoke with a therapist about just who you attract in general, about how you talk about yourself and self-deprecation, and that kind of overall vibe gives out who you're dating, which leads into who you already know and those attacks. When you're dealing with people who are survivors or victims of attacks of people they know, in those instances, sometimes I think there's a place where you don't even know that you're being attacked. This is a person who's doing something to me. It must therefore be okay. And would you fight them anyway? Like, that's a self-awareness of knowing when somebody is actually sexually assaulting you because things have been so acceptable. Like you've been dating somebody and they're pushing you forward and you don't want it right now. Like in those instances in your classes, do you address those kind of things of, you know, being able to say no at any time, no matter who it is and what the actions are?
Actually, I get goosebumps when I think about it. My daughter stayed silent for 4 years. And one of her attackers was a boyfriend that she'd had for quite some time. She wasn't with him anymore at this point because she didn't tell us right away. But in that case, she had been sexually involved with this person. So that was part of the guilt and part of the non-report. Like, is it somehow your fault? And I had to shake her and tell her, I don't care if someday you're married, lying naked with your husband. If it is not okay with you, it is not okay. Period. And that's when it is absolutely okay to fight back. It doesn't have to be the socially acceptable. It has to be your acceptable. And too many women don't give themselves that value. And you're always more valuable than somebody who tries to hurt you. And that was something I had to drill into my daughter, who thankfully, you know, she's one, I call her survivor. She continued on with school. She's a special ed teacher. She's married now. Like, all of that's great. But I wish she was never in the position in the first place. I wish she had the power, though I think in that case she was overpowered. But I think she would have, if she'd had the skills, the tools, and the mindset to fight back, she wouldn't have gone through all that and all that torture all the time that she'd stayed silent before she could, try and get some healing. So for me, it's not okay if it's not okay with you personally. And you have to give yourself that value. And one of the things you were talking about with the psychologist saying that, women are self-deprecating. We are so self-deprecating. It sucks. And one of the things I had to start realizing is if I wouldn't say that to a friend, why am I saying it to myself? So from now on, and I want you to think of this too, Leanne, from now on, when you do it to yourself, I want you to hear my voice in your head yelling at you, don't talk to my friend that way. Because if you're not going to talk to me that way, I don't want you talking to you that way. So I want you to start. If you can't make it your own voice, then make it mine. Don't talk to my friend that way because you're taking away your value and you shouldn't be doing that. And we sure as hell shouldn't let anyone else do that to us.
Right.
So when we're dating and there's somebody else doing that to us, don't give them that power. That's not the person you should be with.
Right. And I think thinking about this is, and especially today with so many women coming forward about their sexual assaults and what's been happening, people are now making judgment calls on their own of what is sexual assault and what isn't, what is offensive and what's not. And there's a lot of gray matter there with it. And I think this I've been in this situation myself, and having a person that you've been in a relationship with and thinking that because their words aren't matching their actions, their words are saying that things are okay. It's really it messes with your mind, because when we think of an assault on somebody, we picture someone being hurt or beaten or hit or really forcibly pushed. And not all sexual assaults come in that fashion or that manner. It's somebody, it can be somebody we know that's saying, no, don't worry, and then still forcing themselves on you, but it's not what we see in movies, or that's dramatized, or maybe that we've learned in other places, or, we don't end up in the hospital, therefore we can't say anything about it. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's so much gray area with that in how we perceive it and what we're taught at such a young age. Like, growing up in grade school, if the guy used to sit behind me used to hit me all the time in the back of the head, and my mom would tell me, well, that's because he likes you. That's a crush. And you think about it, you hit back and forth and you joke around with a guy and you're in grade school, and that's he likes you. He's, picking on you, or he's probably, and we are sent that message from such a young age that I think that, as innocent it may be at that time, we grow up and we think, well, this is their way of showing that they care. This is how this happens. Well,
that's the mindset that ends up happening for a lot of people in domestic violence situations too, is, we grow up thinking if somebody's smacking me, it means they have a crush on me. Well, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be acceptable. But we take it, and we go through that. And most of the times in those situations at that point, we've also lost our own value.
Yeah.
So, having been in domestic violence type of situation, I remember just them taking the value away so that once you're hit, all of a sudden, somehow it's your fault. Mm-hmm. You're the one who made them mad enough to hit you. Oh, but they're sorry, and they bring flowers the next day, and they're going to change, and they're never going to do it again, which is a bunch of crap.
Right.
But we don't know it in the moment. Because then we feel kind of sorry too, like maybe I did bring it on, and we start to blame ourselves. And it's a really hard mindset to get out of. And that's why so many women stay. When it comes to, I know we were talking about sexual assault, but that can play into domestic violence because that's often, it is.
Yeah.
If it is your spouse or the person you're dating, that is a form of domestic violence, even when you're not beaten. In none of my daughter's instances, as far as I know, was there a bruise left. It's not that she was hit ever, but she didn't have her voice.
Right.
And that's a big part of our problem, is we're worried about what society is going to think. And so we stop. We don't speak up. And I think with the law, it's tough even for the law. I think that's why they've been trying to make the whole consent thing go through. Like, it's not anymore about no. You are supposed to have to get a yes. So if you are saying no, 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 which, I mean, I'd like it if men would respect us enough that the moment we say no, they stop. They don't just think, well, if I keep trying, I can convince her. I can turn her on enough. That makes me sick.
Right.
If I say no, my husband leaves me alone.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how it should be, but it's not. But as women, we have to start taking our power back and make it be that way. And of course, if they get forcible, we do what we can to get out.
Mm-hmm.
But it all comes down to somebody giving themselves the value. Yeah. Do I mean that it's their fault when something happens to them? Hell no. It is never, never, never the victim's fault. And that's a big part of our society's problem too, is that we victim shame and we victim blame all the time. I have a client whose daughter was attacked outside of a gym. The guy got her into the backseat of her car. He was on top of her attempting to rape her. Somehow she got out. Thank you, God. But when the police got there, do you know what was told to her? The police officer said, you shouldn't have been wearing yoga pants. Yeah. What? I wear yoga pants all the time just to run to the grocery store. But this woman was coming out of a gym. What should she have been wearing? And how does that play into this at all? Now, that one officer, I'm not blaming all officers. I don't think all officers are that way. But it is that type of society mindset that causes us as women to not feel valued enough to be able to speak up to ourselves, to not feel valued enough to report it when it happens.
Right.
You know, you got to think that, and I was just sitting with a very close friend of mine. He's a retired officer, and he's a very sensitive, amazing man. And we were discussing how a police officer on scene or any first responder on scene of anything like that can change the trajectory of that person even being prosecuted. Because if the first responder says that to a woman, how easy is it going to be for her to go talk to the district attorney and go, you know, make a true statement when now somebody's already blamed her? Why is she going to want to go through that hell?
Right. And we usually don't.
No, that's why I'm trying to talk to him about starting to work with officers and go through and do continued education and handling domestic violence and sexual assault a whole different way when they come on scene. Mind you, that may have only been that one cop that needed a good kick to the crotch and a report to the watch commander. But
and what happens is that this one woman or this cop talks about this one woman, each go and tell other people the same scenario. Other women hear it, and other women will now be less likely to come forward on either, you know, as a result of that one woman's story. Even with the whole Me Too movement happening now, hearing some of the people be judged on what they came forward with and what their assault was, and people accepting some stories over others, I would never want to come forward and tell anybody my story for that to be hit in the news and that kind of shaming to happen.
Yeah.
No matter,
it's sad.
Who are you to judge?
It's sad that us as a society is doing that to people. I mean, yes, there have been fake reports, but the percentage of fake reports over true reports is extremely minuscule.
Right.
So it makes me sad that the society tends to jump straight to the idea that a woman is lying about it, unless she looks battered.
Right.
No, most of these assaults, they don't look battered.
Right. And where is the proof? Where is the proof? And where is, you know, all of this stuff. And they wonder why a lot of the questions that I see come up, especially on social media threads, is, well, why have they waited so many years? Well, there's really, why would I come out ever then with that kind of reaction of questioning whether it's I've waited two days versus 10 years, or if I wore this and where was I and why did I go there in the first place, or why did I say that, or why did I do this, you know, why didn't I fight back? Why didn't I hit them? Why didn't I, you know?
I can address so much of what you just said. Let me start with the first closest one. The one of why didn't I hit them and why didn't I fight back? Well, first, we have 3 responses to threat. It's fight, flight, or freeze. Freeze is uncontrollable. So if you didn't react, it's probably because your own body just didn't know how. You blacked out. Not blacked out unconscious. I'm not meaning like you were drinking so much you're gone. But we go into different zones because there's different levels of threat. And the very top level of the pyramid, and it's something we teach in our self-defense class, is the black level. That's when your mind just stops. This is so traumatic that everything's just kind of shutting off. So you freeze. And that's something that we don't have control of. You might think you're the biggest badass in the world, but until you've been tested, you really don't know. So that's why we encourage having training, whether it be psychologically or physically, coming to self-defense classes and so forth, because the chance of you going into that black and freezing goes down, or you can start to go from the red level, which is the fight level, and the black, and go back and forth from that. But you know what? That whole kind of blackout thing is also protection from trauma. That is our body's way. You know, when people say they're not sure what happened or they don't have memory of a trauma, it's because it was so bad that we just don't want to remember it. But eventually it does come out. So if you think you've been through trauma, you've got to go get yourself therapy. Because in my daughter's case now, when we're talking about why people wait so long to report, and not just my daughter, but oh my God, I can't tell you how many women I've talked to. There are absolute emotional responses to being attacked, and especially when it's somebody that you know. You know, when you're thinking about when it's somebody you know, it's the element of surprise, then it's the element of shame, and then it's the element of guilt, because somehow you think, how'd I bring this on? Same thing in domestic violence. Like you blame yourself first and foremost, especially women. We're so deprecating to ourselves, so why wouldn't we blame ourselves here, right? Mm-hmm. And so all of these emotions start going into play, and so we question if it's somehow our fault. Did we invite it? Did we, we flirted with a man, so maybe we gave him the wrong impression. I don't care. Flirting, it does not mean you can go, attack a woman. I'm a flirt by personality. Like, I don't actually want to sleep with every man I know, but the way that I talk to people, I'm just really flirtatious and touchy and everything. Does that mean that I deserve for a man to think he can have me? Hell no. And even if you are in the middle of some degree of intimacy, that does not give somebody the right to then take it. So in my daughter's case, like I was talking about, it took her 4 years to report her 2 attacks. The first one happened 4 years prior. The second one happened 2 years after that. And the trigger for her to even tell me was that first guy showing up at her work. Mm-hmm. Different city, 4 years later. He gave her that up and down look. Oh, you work here? Now I'll definitely apply. Okay, what is that going to do to somebody who's pushed trauma down but throw them into a full-blown panic attack? So she finally told me everything that happened. Now you're talking 2 years after the second attack. What physical evidence is there? And that's what the courts are going to ask for. So that's why it doesn't get reported. I mean, the statistics that are published here in the United States is 1 in 5 women will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. But That's BS. It's way more. Mm-hmm. The only statistics they can report on are the ones that are reported. But I can tell you a huge percentage of the women that I have talked to through doing this business 4.5 years have never taken it to the police. And that makes me sad that they didn't give themselves the value. But do I understand it? Absolutely. When 97% of the rapists will never serve a day in jail, when we as a society give this guy who raped that college girl behind a trash can, because she was unconscious, a slap on the wrist when it was a witnessed attack, like how the hell do we do that? It's not okay. We need change in that. But that's where we come around to, why I want women to start being proactive about their personal safety. It's not their 100% responsibility. They should be able to walk down the street and not think they're going to be attacked. Unfortunately, the way things are now, being proactive about it, doing something, taking a self-defense class, taking one of our classes, I teach warrior workshops, I do lunch and learns in businesses. Doing something to be proactive in your safety can help reduce those risks. Because I don't want women to live with that trauma.
What do you say to the woman? Because I think it's so important for us to be educated when it comes to these kind of things. And I think there's also a misconception among women about, well, I'm a strong woman, I'm not weak like that. Like, I think I hear different, and maybe it comes from some of the older generation of, well, they're a weak woman, like how that they let themselves be manipulated that way, or I would never let that happen to me type thing. Like, we judge those women that it happens to versus, and not viewing ourselves as a potential next person. And I think until it happens to everybody, they don't get it. Like, it's not about you necessarily being a weak person.
You are hitting on the biggest frustration I have in my business. That's why to this day, I don't say I do sales. I'm absolutely just trying to educate and present an opportunity. Does it come with sales on the back end? Yeah, it can if people choose to equip themselves. But Sometimes what you're talking about is to, again, women not giving themselves the value. Do you know how many women I've had walk up to my table, my booth, or be at a party and say, oh, no one's going to want to rape me?
Mm-hmm.
Because they think rape's about sex instead of about power. Or that big personality woman, kind of like me, loud and boisterous and a little bit on the bitchy side sometimes, excuse my language. But actually that's something I try and teach women. But sometimes that can be a catalyst. Mm-hmm. You get real mouthy with a man and then he wants to exert his power. So even if you think you're all tough and you're loud and you've got this big mouth and you're going to tell a man to back off with no problem, that can also be something that triggers them as well to want to exert their power.
Right.
But a lot of the older generation, that is one of the things I run into too. They absolutely will respect what I do and want to protect their granddaughters, but they never think of themselves. And no, the elderly is not the biggest target. You know, our college age girls are attacked 4 times more than any other age group. But as an older lady, she does have to consider the fact that she may not be able to run as fast. She may not be as strong physically as she thinks. And though, thank you, God, this kind of violence has not touched her life in the past, I also never want it to. I want women to learn to start being prepared. Like, when somebody buys a stun gun from me, do you think I want them to have to use it? Hell no. But if they are prepared so that when, God forbid, if something were to happen to them, they had a way to fight back, absolutely. Like, I wouldn't jump out of an airplane without a parachute, would you? So why are we not doing something? Here's a question. Do you guys wear your seatbelt when you get in the car?
Mm-hmm. All the time.
Do you have smoke detectors in your house?
Yep.
Do you have a burglar alarm in your house?
No.
No?
No, let's put that out there to the world, though. No,
I have ways. Yeah. So here's the thing. I run into people who are doing these things all the time, and the risk of actually having a violent attack is higher. A violent attack happens every 26 seconds in the United States. House fire, not so much. Car crash, I'm not sure. But we're protecting these things, especially with the smoke detector. Yes, some people absolutely believe because I don't want to be asleep and my house is on fire. I have met people who have burglar alarm systems who do not set them when they're home asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to ask them, why are we protecting our possessions more than our person? Why are you giving your things more value than you? Because it's common.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I had a client once, I literally shook her, which is probably assault. But she made me nuts. She said, I would rather be killed than hurt anybody. You know, when I'm trying to teach you to stick your thumb in somebody's eye who's trying to hurt you, you've got to be able to wrap your head around the fact that your value is higher than theirs. She had no value for herself. Then I asked her, are you a mom? She said, yes. I said, so it's okay for you to have somebody take you from your children with you making no effort to fight back. She's like, yeah, I just couldn't do that. Okay. So I'm already getting highly frustrated. Then I find out she has a burglar alarm at home and she doesn't set it when they sleep. I don't want to know somebody's coming in the house. And all I could think to was like Elizabeth Smart, who, by the way, is our guest speaker at our conference this year. But I could think to Elizabeth Smart and all of those children who were taken out of their homes while their families slept. This woman would be okay with that happening to her children instead of waking up because she knows somebody's in her house. I can't understand that mindset. And I'm constantly trying to fight against that mindset because she's not the only one I've come across. People aren't giving themselves value. And that is the one thing we're the most responsible for, is giving ourselves value and not letting others take it away.
Okay, so these women, when they come to you and they're in the self-defense class, what kind of, using what God gave us, like our limbs and everything to fight back. What are your classes like? What kind of things would people expect to learn from you in these classes? Is it just about if someone actually attacks you, or is it awareness of surroundings?
So we do some awareness of surroundings, but it's a shorter class. So we touch on it, but we want women to also know how to use their body. Like for most women, we don't know how to throw a proper punch. We're not going to teach you how to throw a proper punch because really a palm strike's better for a female in the first place. So what our instructor, because we have a second-degree black belt female instructor, we don't actually allow men even in the building because we want women who have been victimized to have a safe place to come. We also, at least 98% of the time, so unless she's sick, we have our sexual assault crisis counselor there for women who are triggered because they have been through trauma, and we want to make sure they're supported. So what we teach is open-handed strikes, kicks, knees, and so forth. And our instructor likes to call it karate Legos, because we'll teach you a sequence, but these can be used in any way, shape, or form. Now, the free class we do is basics. We're also doing a twice-a-year clinic that will cost, but it is a half day, and it's more... The original gear was for college-age girls, but it is absolutely open to any age group. And it will be drills with somebody actually on top of you. How are you going to get out of it when somebody is actually already on top of you and you're on the ground? So it gets into a lot more intense type of training, which is another reason it's great to have the assault crisis counselor on site. Because when somebody who's been through that is suddenly pinned to the ground, even though it's another woman pinning her to the ground.
Oh, that's scary.
It can be very scary. In our class, there's a lot of laughter. We do have a lot of fun, but sometimes too, that laughter comes from the uncomfortable feeling too. So we do try and get people to reel it in some so they can understand the importance of the class, but we do want people to have a lot of fun. Just like when I do home and power hours and stuff, like I don't want anyone walking out the door with a 100-pound weight on their shoulders. I want them to have fun, but I want them to walk out safer than they came in. Yeah. Whether or not they buy something, I don't care. Just learn something, open your mind and start paying attention, and we can have a much nicer way of society.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to have women go out there and assault people. I'm not trying to create a air of you got to go be violent. I mean, I want people to be scared of running into me. Don't get me wrong. In fact, that officer that I mentioned before, his email starts with Big Dave, and he's a big African-American sweetheart of a guy. He's like my big brother now. But when I met him and he gave me his email address, I said, I'll tell you what, Big Dave, if I didn't know you and I ran into you in a dark alley, I'd be scared. And he says, I'll tell you what, stun gun, because that's how he talks. I'll tell you what, stun gun, if I ran into you in a dark alley, even knowing you, I'd be scared. And I'm like, and this man carries a gun. Yes. And that's the air we've got to have. You know, and for women too, you know, we were talking earlier about being raised the way we're raised, right? It's okay for this young boy to be hitting you because he has a crush on you. Or, you know, we're raised always in society to be the nice one, right? We're the ones who are the peacekeepers as opposed to the men. That's how we're raised. Even in our relationships, and going back to even talking about divorce, women blame themselves for divorce like there's no tomorrow, because society raises us to be the ones that keep the relationship together. We don't give as much value to the man's part in that. We're always the one who takes the blame, which sucks because it should be equal, and it is what it is. But what I always try and teach ladies is every single one of us has an inner B word. You know, because you may not always say it out loud, but there's times you've got things running through your head that you want to say to somebody and you keep it inside. Well, when it comes to that gut feeling that we also talked about before, when you're having that gut feeling, let the inner be out. Let her out. It's okay to say, back off. I'm not comfortable with this. And it's okay to say it with authority. You don't have to be sweet about it, because most men that I have ever had don't take subtlety. They just don't. Boys don't pick up on subtle clues. So you moving a couple inches away, he's not going to pick up on that. You actually have to say, back off. I'm not comfortable, or no. And when it comes to strangers, you're in a grocery store parking lot, that person's coming up because they want to know the time, or they want money or directions. A big old back off is going to mean a whole lot more than, no, that's okay. You know, it's different.
Right.
Because they think they can keep pushing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you think, you know, just having that attitude, and then there's this thing like when they get towards you. Now, a lot of controversy over weapons and things in this current times that we're living in and everything. And, you know, most assaults, most things happen within a few feet of each other, or in the cases where we're talking and dating and one-on-one relationships. I mean, they're even closer. Jen just pulled out
my stun gun.
A stun gun. So, you know, I know that people have varying opinions on everything on weapons and guns and gun control and things like that. But in this case, we're talking about personal protection devices that aren't necessarily deadly, right? But that can give a woman or a man an opportunity to get away.
Correct.
Okay. So I just want to kind of make that clear to our listeners that we're not coming from one angle or another on gun control or anything, but more of a personal protection without deadly harm to the other person.
Exactly.
Okay.
So most of our tools are meant to cause no permanent injury whatsoever. We have 2 tools that you can cause permanent injury, and we'll teach you how to do it if it comes to that. But for example, the reason I'm called Stun Gun Jen, it's my favorite weapon that we have. And the reason for that is because even though a stun gun needs direct contact to be a weapon, if I do that alone can be a hell of a deterrent at a distance. Now, if I do it
by hearing it,
right, and if I do it by a back off, it's like the best exclamation point you ever had in your life. So somebody's approaching you, you've got that in your hand and you buzz it off. They know you mean business, and talk about being a prickly cactus.
Yeah. Trader Joe's is never going to look at me the same.
Right.
Like, I don't know, everybody clear the store.
Are you talking about the one on Bellflower? Or is it, you're down by
a second
in the Belmont
PCH
Shore.
Yeah.
So the one on Bellflower is my Trader Joe's. I have this in my hand all the time out there.
Oh, yeah.
And the other 2 reasons I like it is it's a flashlight, so if I'm out at night, but 2, it has a disabling pin. So with this pin around your wrist, if an attacker were to take this away, they can't turn it against me.
Okay, that's another huge question I have.
Right.
Because, like, if these things are at close range, the big question is can they take your weapon away from you and hurt you with it yourself?
Well, and one of the things we teach women, too, is to layer your protection. You shouldn't have one. Like anyone in the military knows, 1 is none and 2 is 1. I carry 4. I have 4 on me right now. I can keep pulling them out of my purse.
Boyfriend, back up.
He's not trying to hurt me.
No, he's not.
I already love him. It's all good. I already told you he's a keeper. Right? So, like, this is a tactical pen. It's a pen.
Oh, wow.
You can legally carry this anywhere, but I can kill you with it, too.
That looks exactly like a pen.
It is a pen. It actually writes beautifully.
Really?
Yeah. That's why realtors love it, because they have to have a pen. But think about realtors. Like, I do a lot of real estate offices. Think about their job. They have to be in empty houses with people they don't know.
Right.
They're I shouldn't say an easy target, but it is a job that you don't go in realizing there's such risk.
Right.
And there is a lot of risk.
Plus, you're going into people's homes if you're going in to assess.
Yep. You're going into homes. You're often sitting at an open house by yourself,
Right.
which I try and teach them not to do, but not all listen, especially ones that have been in, we were talking before, older ladies that have been in the business for years and years and never had an incident. They think I'm nuts.
Right.
But younger ladies a lot of them have had an incident already. So the pen is a flashlight, a DNA collector, a striking tool, and a pen.
Holy cow. Are you kidding me?
And it's beautiful, right?
It's
and it comes in rose
nice
gold.
Pen.
I'm just fascinated looking at it because I'm like, how does it do all of those things? Because it's not that big, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a pen.
It's just a pen.
It's a pen.
And it collects DNA.
There's your flashlight.
The flashlight.
Wow.
See this end here? Feel it. It's jagged. It's not going to like stab you. Just feel it.
Oh,
it's not
yeah,
going to like, you can
is.
carry it with confidence, but if I strike somebody and scrape down, I'm going to get some good DNA in there.
Right.
So that's how this was developed. And now it is not illegal to carry on an airplane, but they can choose to confiscate it. Stadiums and so forth can choose to confiscate it, but it's not illegal to carry there, where everything else we have besides our alarms, it's illegal to carry.
Well, I bet
There,
most people
not everywhere.
in those places probably wouldn't even recognize that that's a...
I had a lady go into Staples, because this is one of our newest items, and she had her party like as soon as I got back from leadership and had it in my hand. And she got one. She tried to go into Staples Center, and one security guard stopped her, and she's like, "It's a pen. Get your manager." Well, the manager was female, thank you God. So manager said, "No, let her through. It's a pen." Because if they say you can't carry this in, then they've got to stop every single person who has a ballpoint pen in their purse and not allow it into the stadium.
Right.
So I just told her next time, just connect it to a checkbook so it doesn't even look like it's just in your purse, and they'll be none the wiser. And Disneyland, doesn't that look like a crown?
Yes.
Tell them it's your princess pen, especially if you have the rose color.
Oh my gosh.
I carry navy because I'm not a pink girl.
We're definitely going to put a picture of this pen. This is, it's like MacGyver. It's like, yeah.
Now, but that is one of the things that can be lethal, because I can take out your airway. I can strike you in the temple. So I can do a number of things with that would be lethal, but it's...
But you could also do that with a pen, potentially. Like a regular ballpoint pen.
Sure.
People could do that anyway. It's just knowing how to use
it. And that's not, we're not trying to teach people to kill unless, God forbid, they had to. If it's kill or be killed, you've got to do what you got to do.
Right.
Again, you are more valuable than the person who came to harm you in the first place. But striking anybody in a hard, if you hold it with your thumb at the tip, roll it over the bone, poke into soft tissue, just about anywhere. It's a pain compliance tool. What we call it is a force multiplier. It's just like our socket to me, which has more legal restrictions because it's not a pen, but it's a force multiplier. Even in your fist, it's going to reinforce your fist.
Yeah.
Right? You poke into soft tissue. It's supposed to create enough pain that maybe we can't do with our bare hands. I mean, look at your hands. You have the most feminine, sweet little hands. Like, I don't know. I mean, actually, I could teach you a few things you can do with them, but you may not have that strength.
Right.
And for a lot of women, that's a concern too, is I'm not strong enough to fight back. Yes, you are. Like, every single one of us has something that we can do. But when you think you're not strong enough, having a force multiplier like a stun gun, like a tactical pen, can be what you need to get out of that situation. We're not trying to tell you, get that guy on the ground, stomp on his head, kick him in the crotch, do all of that, though, temptation would be there, at least for me. Self-defense law is about getting a chance to get away.
Right.
And that's what we want you to do. We want you to stun and run, or we have pepper spray too. So we say stun and run or spray and get away. We don't stick around and admire our work, people. Okay. We're going to get somewhere safe. We're going to call the police and let them know this is where this happened. This is his description. You can find me here because I'm somewhere safe now. And let the police handle it from there. Because I'm all about law enforcement. I'm absolutely thin blue line. I'm 100% think our cops are amazing. But our cops have to get that 911 call to get to there in the first place. We're here to fill the gap. You have to be able to get to your phone. You have to be able to get somewhere safe. There's a gap there. Mm-hmm. There's people out there who say, you don't need any of this. You just need to call 911. Well, if I'm being grabbed from the back and my cell phone's been taken or anything like that, how the heck am I supposed to be able to call 911?
Right.
And then have the time for the police to get there, because a rape, a murder, or anything like that can take seconds.
Well, and they're going to take a cell phone away if it's someone we know or they have a minute. These things that you're showing me, they don't even look like anything that, like, they look like a pen. It looks like a flashlight. It looks like a keychain. Mm-hmm. Like, I would never have identified any one of those. Well, that I might, the stun gun, because that's just a flashlight.
But we have one that looks like a camera.
But see, these look like normal things that any woman would have in their purse. And the first thing that I would do if I were an attacker would take the cell phone, because that is your helpline. That's your lifeline. And you're
talking more like in a dating situation. Right. Maybe you're at his house. You go to the restroom. He's going to take your cell phone and hide it.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's not going to think, I'm going to look for a pen that can also be a DNA sampler. I'm not going to look at her keychain to see, you know what I mean? Like, because those things.
I'm going to be honest. People think this is a special kind of toy.
Oh, yeah. Well,
also for divorcees.
Yes, okay, so we're also putting a picture of that on there for you guys.
I'm just going to say, don't put our stuff by your pink parts, okay?
Right, yeah, don't. Ooh. Oh, God. That's a different kind of DNA. Yeah, but those aren't, like, front of mind. I wouldn't be like, oh, she's going to use that little pink thing to, Oh,
especially the pen. Like, they would have no clue to take the pen. And you can have the pen in your pocket, even on a date. Like, have it in your back pocket. Have it somewhere. I've actually attached it to my bra and my shirt where it just looks like I have a pen available and I can grab it in a second.
Right.
We do a thing called safety check. When we were at leadership, all of us damsels, because we carry this stuff all the time. And we would just like come up to each other and go, safety check. And you had to have a weapon in your hand within a second or two, or they got to take your lanyard away.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And it's kind of fun because now I'm doing it with my kids, because my kids have some of our tools. No, my 9 and 13-year-old aren't carrying stun guns around people. Calm down. But we have personal alarms and that kind of stuff that kids can carry. And I'll just go safety check, and they've got to have something in their hands within a couple of seconds.
Mm. So, okay, this is also good to know. What about these alarms, these personal alarms? Like,
oh my God, I don't have one with me.
If someone's not comfortable, like let's say your lady, your example you were giving us earlier about she wouldn't want to do something to hurt somebody else. And
that's what she bought, was the alarm.
Really?
So good point.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a little personal alarm. We have the holla his and holla hers. Don't ask me why there's gender. I think that's crazy. It's just pink or blue. Like, they're actually mostly black. There's a stripe in color down the center. They're 120 decibel alarm. Wow. You've seen advertisements for some of these types of things, but ours just looks like a little car remote. So it's not obtrusive. It does have a little LED flashlight on it as well. And it has a clip instead of a key ring, because y'all know how much we break our nails when we're trying to put something new on a key ring. The clip then could be right attached to the fixings on your purse, or what are they called? The metal pieces, rings and stuff on your purse. It can be attached to a belt loop. My kids attach them to their backpacks to go to school. It's just one of those extra layers of protection that can create a deterrent. Now, I always try and encourage a lady to also have something to fight back, because if the alarm doesn't work to scare him off, yes, don't get me wrong, there's still knights in shining armor in this world, but they're rare. You cannot say, if I make a lot of noise, someone will save me.
Yeah, think how many car alarms we ignore these days.
Right.
Never even look out the window.
And that's my issue. So it's not going to necessarily save your life every time, but it can create the deterrent. And that's what some people are comfortable. That's fine, as long as they've got something. And the other thing with the alarms is you can legally take those anywhere. So you can take those on a plane. You can take those in a courthouse. You can take them in a stadium. You know, with public restrooms being in the top 3 places women are attacked, I'll take one in the restroom with me as well. So especially with the whole transgenders in the restroom law, and, you know, now it doesn't matter if they're male or female. Don't get me wrong. I am not against transgender being able to use the restroom they identify with. But when a man who looks straight up like a man can walk into the restroom, I have a problem with that. Because most transgender aren't trying to look like the opposite sex. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. They're not trying to look like the sex they are, not the opposite sex. They're trying to look. Okay. So you know what I'm getting at? So
it has nothing to do with transgender. It has more to do with unisex bathrooms.
Right.
So that now you don't want transgender aside, anybody to be able to take advantage of the situation and walk in and assault somebody.
Thank you. Exactly.
So it has nothing to do necessarily with transgender.
And I mean, public restrooms being in the top 3 places women were attacked or abducted from was already there before the changes in the laws in some states. So I always tell women, when you're going to the bathroom by yourself, which using the buddy system is always better, like when we were kids, even if the boys are making fun of us, we should use our buddy system. Go in there. If you have to be by yourself, check the stalls. If the door is locked and you don't see feet, get the hell out of there, because they could be standing on the toilet. And then if you do see feet and they're not quite obviously feminine feet, get out of there. Most transgender aren't wearing big old boots, you know, like combat boots or a man's shoe. So I would leave. Have you guys ever seen the scary movie Copycat?
No.
Yes, I think so. It's old. It's from a long time ago.
It's Harry Connick Jr. is the bad guy in it. Oh, did he do well? But there is a scene of him doing an attack in a public restroom. Ever since then, public restrooms have creeped me out. I'll go, but they've always creeped me out.
Well, they creep me out, but for different reasons.
Are you a germaphobe?
I can be if I go in the wrong public restroom, yes. But yeah. And I think just in general, whether it's, I think any room that we can go in that potentially anybody else in the world can walk into, like, and you know, if there's no, because none of those are locked. If they're not single stalls, or if there's any other place in public where we go and we can find ourselves in those situations that are kind of isolated. Even when you think about it, like if you go up into some sort of office space and it's in an office building, there's not many people around. I don't know how many times you walk into, you know, random places and there's nobody sitting at the desk and there's nobody, oh, I just ran out for a coffee and I'll be back. Like anybody can walk in behind you and they have 5-10 minutes sometimes.
Well, my chiropractor has a creepy hallway.
Yeah.
He's an amazing chiropractor. So if anyone needs a chiropractor referral, check with me because he's amazeballs. But the hallway's creepy and the bathroom is down the hallway and you need a key, which needing a key is great, but it's way down the hallway. I think there's been once that I've gone to his office that there's been another human being in that hallway. And it creeps me out because it's darker, it's not well lit, and you just never know who's coming out from the doors on the side. Same thing with hotels. You know, I've heard terrible stories about women who were walking down to their hotel room and being grabbed into a room as well. And there was, I won't get into detail anyway. So even when I'm walking down a hotel hallway, I'm always armed and paying attention. I'm not sitting there on my phone. You know, I'm not texting. I'm looking around. I'm checking those doors. Are they already cracked? Can that person, you know, if somebody opened that real quick, could they pull me in? Is there anyone else in the hallway to hear me? You know, those are things I'm thinking of. Am I paranoid? Hell no. but I'm prepared.
Right.
I worked 911 for almost 12 years. I've heard too much of what can happen. I'm not going to allow myself that vulnerability when there's so much I can easily do to make myself not be vulnerable.
Right. Well, we had talked a little bit too about, dating and whether people come and pick you up at your home or if we have them meet them somewhere else. But yeah, like even being alone in someone's car, having no control over where you're going, suddenly you notice like, what do you do? What,
Yeah, actually, that's so funny. So I met my husband online dating, which so many people are afraid to do because they think, oh no, only creeps are there. But no, there's wonderful people there too. Just kind of sometimes depends on the app you use and how you put yourself out there. If they have to swipe left or swipe right, like stay away. You know what I'm talking about. But there's so much that we can do when we are going back into the dating world to keep ourselves safe. Now, that's not to say that there aren't going to be times that somebody has the time to gain our trust and we just misread. Especially, and we talked about this too, is when we get out of a relationship and we jump into another one quickly, we often haven't had the time to heal. And if we don't take the time to heal from an unhealthy relationship, we often step right into another unhealthy relationship. One thing that I found for myself when I was in this situation is what I had to do is stop dating. I had to stop dating for a while and learn to love myself enough to be alone and be okay with that before I was going to find the right person. Because when we keep having to have somebody else fill the void, when we do that, we tend to get desperate. And whenever we're desperate, we always pick the short straw. So first and foremost, big thing for me, for advice for women jumping in the dating pool, no matter how many years you're married, stop. Don't date till you take some time to yourself and find yourself again, especially if that relationship was an unhealthy one where you've lost your identity. Okay. Second, take time to know the person before you actually go to meet the person. So as an example, and I was telling you guys before, when I met my husband online dating, I was at that point, I was done dating for a while. Men just, at that point, just were always disappointing to me in the long run. But still, I had been online dating prior for about 2 years. Because I worked an 18-hour shift, 12 to 18-hour shifts, and was a single mom. Like, where do I go out and meet people? Are you kidding me? I mean, you guys met at Starbucks, but which is actually not a bad place. But it's better than going into a bar where everybody's drinking and their judgment's impaired. But I saw his face, not the kind of guy I'm normally attracted to, but okay, I got to be real. His stuff was about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I was a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. So I thought, this guy's funny, and this guy might be a great friend. So I reached out to him anyway, and then we were in touch for a little bit. 9/11 happened, and I worked for the fire department at the time. And my father's a retired firefighter, so that caused me a little depression. So we actually lost touch for a while, and then out of the blue, he emailed me again. We started with emails, moved to the phone, spent hours and hours on the phone getting to know each other before ever having our first date. And even in that case, I picked the place. I made sure I picked a place. I knew the exits. I knew my way around the restaurant. I knew my way around the area if I had to take off in my car. I always drove myself. I always I don't still date, right? Okay. Please don't let my husband think I still date. Actually, he's not a jealous type. So I would always make sure a trusted person knew everything I knew about that person I was meeting, from their phone number to their name to their photograph, any personal details I was able to get about them. Somebody knew them. At the time I would tell my mom. Not everybody has that relationship with their mom, but you can tell your best friend, whatever. So if God forbid something happens to you, they at least have something to report. You check in with that person while you're there. Okay, I got here. I'm here safe. Actually, I see him. He's already in the restaurant. Oh, he looks really nice. And if you don't see him, he probably catfished you. So be careful because, they're putting out those fake photos now. But mine was sitting outside of TGI Fridays and really uncomfortable because there was a
I love
woman
that you
who was.
picked TGI Fridays.
Did you guys do that too?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm just laughing that you did.
Well, it was near
Yeah.
my house. I love the food because I'm a junk food freak. And we were going to go see a movie, which we were at the town center, in Long Beach Town Center, and there's a theater right there.
Yeah.
So it was meaning never having to get back in the car, no temptation to jump in the car with him. I knew where I was going.
Right. And you knew it'd be populated.
And I knew it'd be especially TGI Fridays, for God's sake. So, and you know what? Maybe consider not having an alcoholic drink, at least on that first date, for a couple of reasons. One, it impairs judgment. Two, I don't know why else. I just know that I didn't drink at all, and I thought that was a smart thing to do. And, you know, like anytime you're dating, you're single or getting to know someone, of course you never leave your drink alone with them. It takes seconds for somebody to drop something in your drink. There's a guy,
Even if it's non-alcoholic.
for sure. Because there's this guy who did this. He did a YouTube like social experiment thing on how easy it is to drug somebody's drink. Mind you, every time he dropped something in somebody's drink, he told them right afterward. So this guy wasn't meaning to harm people. But he even did it to a girl who was sitting there with her boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
And she was sitting at a bar and she just had her back turned to him. And he was able to slip her a drug right in her drink right there. Just like that. So you have to pay attention to your drink. Do I want you to be paranoid that this person you think you're starting to trust is going to harm you? No. But should you be prepared? Yes. What did we say? 82% of the people that harm us are people we know. Why not at least for that first little while stay completely on guard the best that you can? So it's not just when you go to a party. It's not just when you go to a bar with your girlfriends. But even on those first few dates, just pay very close attention to your food and to their behavior and your gut.
Yeah. You know, and what you're saying makes complete and perfect sense. And I just hear some of my friends saying, oh my God, loosen up. It's just a date. Like, I would pick up on that. Like, I don't want to be paranoid. Like, what about having fun? You know, there's always going to be those people who are like,
Oh, for sure.
You're worry ward or you're making too much. But yet this stuff happens all the time.
And I've seen the effects of it. So I would rather be slightly worried and prepared. Yeah. And I hate that other P word. People have called me paranoid. I'm not paranoid at all. I don't live in fear because I don't have to.
Right. There's a difference, right?
For sure.
From being paranoid than being aware. And so another question that I have is, as we're talking about all of this, you know, men listen to our podcast as well, and they're out there dating, like, and hopefully picking up on some tips of like, don't put out the creepy vibe, like things maybe that they couldn't do to help make a woman feel at ease.
But not all abuse comes from men.
No.
I've got male friends who had god awful crazy girlfriends too.
So on the same thing, this isn't just necessarily a woman we're talking about. For sure. This is on both sides because they're, you know, people do boil rabbits. Like,
oh
right, boyfriend?
Yes.
Wait, don't say that like you've done it. Like,
no, I haven't.
No wonder it's been 2 years and there's no ring on it. Right? You boiled his pet. I'm just kidding.
So I have an interesting question. Have you know some of the statistics? Has there been a decrease? Is there any generational change? Are the younger men growing up today better with their treatment?
I would say no.
Really?
Have you paid attention to teenagers lately?
No.
No.
I have, because that's my life.
Yeah.
No, there's becoming a less respect. There's I think, and mind you, I don't know the statistics from then to now. And even then, I think they could be skewed by just with our ability to communicate. So it could be that, say, rape statistics are truly, when it came right down to reality, but we just don't know, the same now that they were in, say, 1980 when I was a teenager. But they would skew to look higher now because there's so much more forms of communication, so we're hearing more about it. So I'm not sure what reality is there. What I can say is what I have observed is there is becoming a lesser amount of respect in our younger generations for authority and for other people and their bodies.
Wow.
The rape culture of the kids nowadays, I mean, it's like rape is a casual word to them. Sex is a casual thing to them. So they don't realize, like, as women, we're mostly wired for sex to be an emotional thing. Mostly. I mean, there's some women who are not wired that way and they can take it casually like some men. Or some men, like my husband, never have taken it casually in their life. He's more the female in our relationship than I am. But there is some amount that is taken away from a woman anytime she's intimate with somebody, and sometimes is readily given as a gift and sometimes is taken. Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when they give it as a gift, it's not damaging, but when it's taken, it is. But some women give it without realizing that it's actually damaging them because there's pressures put on them. And kids these days think that, not all kids, but you get a generalization, tend to think that sex is just such a casual thing. That's why we see kids in elementary school. I've heard of 4th and 5th graders having oral sex. I mean, when I was a kid,
oh my God,
what the hell? Like, I didn't know what that even was. It makes me sick to my stomach having to raise kids nowadays. But going into that, that's part of why Damsel actually has a whole line of education for kids. So we have a Safe Hearts line that's meant to be for parents to use as a tool to teach their children. So far, our books cover mostly predatorial type of action. So they would be a book you would sit down and read with your kid, not just hand to your kid and go read this. It's meant to open conversations in the house. Because if I sit down with my kids all by myself and I'm like, you never let somebody touch you here, 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 and here. Okay, so half of that's going in one ear, out the other.
Right.
But when we make it fun and it's a story and it becomes a conversation between the two of us, it sinks in better and it's easier received. And so we have a whole line of books that were sat down with a panel of survivors, therapists, an amazing animation artist or illustrator that sat down and created this line of books. In fact, our main author is a friend of mine and also a Damsel pro. Her name is Sunshine, and she has one of the worst stories you'd ever hear. I mean, when you're raped by your own father as a tiny child, and then get passed around the family and so forth, that's pretty traumatic. But this woman is the most uplifting survivor of a woman. Her name absolutely suits her.
Wow.
But she can take from that pain as a child and she can put it into a story. And mind you, in none of these stories does it get descriptive to the point that you know exactly what has or might happen to a child. We leave that to the parents to take to an age-appropriate level. And that's one of the reasons I think this whole education line is magic. So when, especially now as divorced parents, we'll start to see our spouse maybe introducing our child to too many other people,
right,
or even just one that maybe makes us uncomfortable. This is the most important time. Well, no, there's always an important time, but it is a very important time to make sure your kids understand body boundaries. And that is, even if it's a person of authority, it's still not okay, and always to report. And if you open those conversations with them too, they're more apt to feel comfortable with you to come and tell you if something happens. And then we have a parent guide that goes through the signs of trauma and where to get your children help and how to help them and how to receive that information from them in a way that's going to help them heal from it as well. So it's so well thought out. But I totally went off tangent because you're talking more about the young generation, not little kids.
It's all pertinent. It's all valuable information to know. I'm just amazed that this hasn't changed. And you know what? You mentioned something about the disconnect. And that may be back to what your previous comment was about the phones. We're so disconnected from each other, so there's no communication. And if there's no communication, then how do you know what the boundaries are of somebody else's body or anything? You just take. It's an object.
Right.
And that may be a really crass way of putting it. But
no, it's on point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. So and it's not your job, but it's just something we should be aware of and trying to improve our society moving forward.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's been a real problem with us giving not only ourselves, but other people the value they deserve. Yeah. Do I mean you have to respect everybody? Hell no, because not everybody deserves it. But, human life has value. And I mean, just look at what's happening. We just had the school shootings in Florida. That kid had no value for human life. And that's sad to me that anybody would feel that way. And he's not the only one, mind you. We have people who are violent all the time that just don't give the same value. As sane people, which is what I'm assuming I'm sitting with and God willing talking to, we actually know that like you're somebody's daughter, you're somebody's child. You are also a beautiful woman. You also have somebody else who loves you with boyfriend. You have value, but somebody else may not see that. And it's sick to me that somebody can see any human being as an object.
Right.
But you're right. They do.
Yeah.
These kids, I'm seeing kids not even respect property the same way I was. I remember when I was a kid, you would get in so much trouble if you rode your bike over somebody's lawn.
Oh, gosh.
When you trick-or-treated, you stayed on the sidewalk, you walked up their driveway or their walking path, and you went to their door.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't
Not
happen.
today.
Watch kids now. That doesn't happen.
No.
We have a bus stop I have to pass going by picking up my kids from school, and there's a house by that bus stop. You better bet all the high school kids are making use of that house's lawn. They leave their trash. They're wrestling on this person's lawn. That's somebody's private property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't have respect for that. So if we aren't teaching our kids respect for that, how are we teaching our kids respect for people? And it's honestly, in many ways, a lack of parenting, because there was, generations that every time, and I'm always going to get political, so I should probably shut up. But there's, we have to be softer and softer and softer with our discipline, to the point that many parents are too scared to discipline their kids. And no, I don't mean beating your child, but I mean just straight up, take their phone away.
Right.
Right? Take their most valued objects
away until they learn to play with nice. And going back to the things like the phone and objectifying themselves, it's kind of like I feel even adults are hiding behind the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
And there is so much, people feel so safe by throwing things out into Facebook or into social media and saying things that they would never say face to face to somebody, that they would never have the courage to come forward and have a healthy conversation about. But it's all out there on these social media platforms. And the same with photos. Like, the photos that we take and what we're presenting to the world, if all of those people on our Facebook friends were in our front yard, would we stand there and do the same things that we're doing in these photos that we put? Like, there seems to be like the safety, like, well, it's just a picture, so it's, but would you do that in person? And to be able to look at other people and see their most interpersonal parts, or what we perceive to be of their life. If you get sucked into that black hole on Instagram or something where you're going through people's pictures and stuff like that, and it's like suddenly you feel this connection to people just by looking through their photos, but yet you've never spoken to this person before. It takes away from to the value of an actual human connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because these are not real. These are all on a phone. These are what people made up and presented to you. They're not necessarily fact or a relationship. And I think people tend to think they're a lot closer to friends than they actually are. Like, there's people on social media that have never talked in person for over a year, but they feel like they're best friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same as having a human connection with people. And I feel like when I hear you talking about kids in grade school, all of a sudden having these human connections in the bathroom, like, it's got to be so confusing.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's why it scares me. That's why my kids aren't allowed on social media.
Yeah.
Because I worry about that. There is a huge lack of true interpersonal communication. Like, I implore you to sit there and go through your Facebook friends list and say, when was the last time I actually made eye contact with this person? And that doesn't mean at a photo. And then taking it even a step further, how many people, children especially, but even grown women who are newly single, are sending photos that they think are private to somebody they're dating.
Yes.
Like, I don't take those photos.
No.
I don't care. And I trust my husband 100%, but you can wait till you're home and can see it in person, because I am not putting it out on the waves. Because any person can take that photo and put it anywhere they want. And that whole Snapchat thing where it supposedly goes away quickly, that's BS. That's still out there. Somebody can get it. And they can screenshot it quickly too. So kids got really trapped into Snapchat when it first came out, because they thought, if I send this to somebody, they only see it for a few seconds and then it goes away forever. No. And that's where there was a lot of children who actually were found with child porn on their phones because they would screen capture and then it's there. And the girl can get in trouble for sending it. And I always say a girl because they tend to be baited into it very often. There's very few boys. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of boys, grown boys that are sending out.
Yeah.
To say it crassly, a dick pic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way, oh my Lord.
I know.
I can't remember who I was with recently who's like, oh yeah, you should see all the ones I have on my phone. I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Ew.
Have you ever gotten one of those? It's disturbing.
No.
It's almost like,
Thank God I wasn't single during that time.
I'm not expecting it. And I don't like random, like, I don't even know who this number is. Like, boy, it's a bad time to misdial. You know? It's like,
But was it really a misdial?
I don't know.
Because where is your phone number out there?
Right.
I mean,
yes.
And as a prime example, my ex-husband's a crazy son of a bitch. Okay. He's a sociopathic, faked his own death to get out of child support. I mean, crazy. Okay. Reached out to my daughter after years of no contact. Once the kibosh was put on that, suddenly started following her on Instagram under the guise that it was his son. Okay. But no 18-year-old boy puts a 400-pound man in his picture with him saying, this is my daddy. I'm so proud. Okay. Because they're usually there to pick up on girls. And it's not easy to do when your daddy's a big old slob.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
he wasn't 400 pounds when I married him, but he got that way. Okay. So she blocked him. And within 24 hours, she started getting disgusting texts from all sorts of phone numbers. And the way she actually communicated with one of them enough to find out where he got her number. Well, her number had been on social media. And I know it was my ex-husband, though I can't prove it. It was taken and put onto a porn site called motherlessdaughters.com.
No.
So when I went there to see if somebody actually had a picture, photoshopped or otherwise, up with her phone number and started going through trying to find where they had the number, and in the meantime, immediately changed my daughter's phone number and everything, the ads on there made me sick to my stomach. It was often somebody close to the person trying to sell the person. And there's so many of those kinds of sites out there, they can't stay on top of it. So it just, I mean, I know it was him because why would they pick motherlessdaughters.com? I mean, come on. It was so disgusting. And the timing was disgustingly obvious. But the damage done to my daughter and the few texts she got, I mean, imagine that. So we have to start protecting that too. I mean, my phone number's out there because of my business, and I've been lucky enough, but I also, you know, like I said, I'm always walking with at least 4 weapons and I'm paying attention. So, and when you're dating, you're giving out your phone number.
Right.
You can get a Google Voice number for free, by the way, and forward it to your cell phone, just FYI.
Yes.
So if you want that ability to have some anonymity and to be able to not be as traceable while you are diving into the pool, that is a fantastic choice. And I don't think you can send pictures that way. So you won't be, I don't think, I'm not sure, I haven't tried it lately, but so you won't be tempted to send your own, and you won't receive those random dick pics either until they get the actual phone number. But yeah, it's scary to me now, raising kids in this day and age. And that's why we have to stay on top of them. That's why we have to stay prepared. Too many families and parents are unplugged from their children. We've disconnected. We have our own stress. We have our businesses. You know, I mean, I've done it myself and caught myself going, wow, my kids are here wanting my attention. And why the hell am I on Facebook?
Right.
We have a lot of distractions, and it's starting to harm our families as a whole, which then goes back into the value, because when it's us taking the value away from our kids, think about how it is for you when somebody you date takes or marry takes away the value to you. What about when it's your parent, the core person who you find your value from, is either abusive or neglectful? And it's hard for a child to find their value in themselves. And that's when we end up with people who are very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's so much. I feel like we could go on for days. There's so much, especially when you incorporate dating with the social media and the technology aspects, and then when you finally meet people in person, and I don't think in today's world people are the same as they used to be. When you meet people in person, a lot of people have a hard time interacting on that level, and being aware is so very important, and practicing that, you know, and in order to practice and become good at it, you have to get out there and do it. So I think what you're doing is really really awesome. And we
But
will.
I think, and I'm going to say one last thing. I think the value, having personal value, valuing others, those simple concepts help reduce some of these acts, or could potentially help reduce some of these acts. Just value your human connection that you have with people, value your human connection you have with yourself.
For sure.
And we don't do that enough, I don't think.
No, I think we get caught up in so many of the new things out there and the new toys that we forget that there's a meaning of life. There's actually life behind all of this. So what you're doing is so very important. And I'm so glad that you came and shared all this information with us. And
thanks for having me.
We may have to have you back. We may
we'll
have to have a follow up on this because there's just tons.
I don't think you should. I don't have a lot to say. I'm really shy, quiet.
No, you're
not very
we got to draw you
either.
out of your shell. I don't know. I'm thinking it would be really fun. I'm gonna have to check out one of your classes and stuff coming up. And
host your own Empower Hour. Get your girlfriends together. You get our stuff for free when you host. Like you earn free and half price product. I come in. We have wine and weapons. You tell your girlfriends that you're going to serve wine, or better yet, tell them all to bring their favorite bottle to share, and you get all the leftovers. And then it doesn't cost you a lot because you don't have to put out a lot. I don't even want people to put out a lot of food because it's a distraction.
Yeah.
But tell them come and learn, and we'll sip some wine, have some fun with friends, and play with weapons. I'm not talking about assault rifles here, people.
No, these are self-protection, help you get away, get to safety.
And they're pretty.
And they're pretty. And they are very pretty. And they're useful. Like you can write with them. So, and they shine bright lights in your eyes. So there's that. No,
and I teach how to use them. Like that's the other part. When I go and I do that, and we're not just going to play with them. I'm going to teach you how to use them. If you choose to purchase, which is no pressure. I'm not a pressure person. If you choose to carry it, don't give me your money if it's going to be in your drawer. I don't want it in the bottom of your purse. This is for you to be prepared. It's because I don't want that call from a client that says, Jen, guess what happened to me?
Right.
And I say, well, where was your stun gun? Oh, it was home in the kitchen drawer. I haven't taken it out of the box.
Because most of my problems come in the kitchen. Right.
Actually, they can. So I actually teach women to stage their protection at home too, which that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, if that's the only one you have and you're not carrying it with you, what do you think?
Don't do it.
Is it your fault you were attacked? No. But the outcome could have been better had you had that tool in your hand.
And even if you don't want to have something like that and you're not comfortable, just to learn and become aware and understand. There's nothing wrong with having a better understanding and a better self-awareness.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very, very much.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Thank you.
It was great to meet the boyfriend.
I know.